Walker is, in a way, a mystery man. Out of nowhere, with a handful of students and scarcely any pros, he's managed to win 3 presidential primaries and is given a fighting chance to take a 4th, Tennessee. A win in that state would take on added significance, for only once in the last 50 years has Tennessee failed to vote for the winning presidential candidate.
Here at Movie Night Extravaganza, we have criminally neglected Altman. Altman has a reputation for being a director that deconstructs genres, revises them, and purposely defies conventions. He has inspired many of our current directors, including the Coen brothers and Paul Thomas Anderson, who have both cited The Long Goodbye as being influential on their films. In 1973 and 1974, Altman took aim at the noir crime genre with The Long Goodbye and then Thieves Like Us. The Long Goodbye is definitely controversial for having Elliot Gould, complete with a 70s fro, playing Philip Marlowe. At a time when Philip Marlowe was probably best remembered as Humphrey Bogart in The Big Sleep, Lee Brackett, who co-wrote the 1946 adaptation of The Big Sleep with William Faulkner, was hired to write a screenplay adaptation of The Long Goodbye. Altman satirically put his Elliot Gould, Philip Marlowe, into a modern 1970s setting, as if he was a 2-decade-old Rip Van Winkle.
Take your clothes off?
Would you like me to take off my clothes?
It's okay with
Why,
me.
it's a pleasure. As a matter of fact, everybody. Harry, everybody take off your clothes.
Marty. I don't want to take off my clothes. I have too many scars.
I understand. Go on inside, Peppy. Go on inside.
Thieves Like Us starred Keith Carradine and Shelley Duvall as a couple who fall in love on the run. The novel Thieves Like Us had been previously adapted into a movie called They Live by Night in 1948. Ironically, Robert Altman stuck much more faithfully to the book than the 1948 adaptation did. And not just because he kept the title. Keith Carradine, Shelley Duvall, and Elliot Gould are among the 24 leading actors in Robert Altman's 1975 satirical country music mockudrama, Nashville. That is the film we are going to be talking about tonight. It's hard to pin Nashville down, and in the 48 years since it was released, it's been hotly debated from every possible side.
I'm thinking, about the first job I ever really got was when Mama, my grandma, she's the one who clacked her false teeth to the radio all day. She taught my mama how to sing, and Mama taught me. One time she took me down because we was going to get a new Frigidaire.
Nashville depicts 5 days, from a Friday to a Tuesday, in the country music capital. As the film wants to take us through the mundane but busy everyday existence of both country western stars and the normal people who surround them, it's a brilliantly structured film. Rather than having us follow each of these 24 threads separately, a lot of the action takes place at large events, where the characters are able to freely come and go. There is a political backdrop to the film, as the main action is centered around the insurgent presidential campaign of Hal Philip Walker, a replacement party candidate who has won 3 presidential primaries and aims to make Tennessee the 4th one.
Willing to battle vast oil companies, eliminate subsidies to farmers, tax churches, abolish the Electoral College, change the national anthem, and remove lawyers from government, especially from Congress.
The politics of Nashville has been debated and analyzed as much as everything else, with a lot left in the air. This makes sense, especially when you realize that they shot the Grand Ole Opry scenes on the same day Nixon resigned. America itself was up in the air. 4 months before his resignation, Nixon desperately went and played piano at the Grand Ole Opry, hoping to regain his footing by spending time with the Southern voters who had given him their support twice. Presidential candidate Hal Philip Walker is never glimpsed, but spends the movie driving around, yelling into a car speaker. Robert Altman's frequent collaborator at that point, Joan Tewksbury, wrote the screenplay for Nashville after going to Nashville at Altman's direction to scope out the scene. Several incidents in the film were taken directly from Joan's actual experiences on that trip. And as far as the film has a central focus, it really doesn't, but the Hamilton family is as close as we get. Henry Gibson's Haven Hamilton, Ronnie Blakely making her debut as Barbara Jean, and Dave Peel as Bud Hamilton. Hal Walker's condescending media consultant, John Triplett, is tasked with getting the Hamiltons to agree to perform at a gala concert for Walker's presidential campaign. He exploits the fact that Hamilton clearly has future political ambitions of his own. Triplett is paired up with Ned Beatty's bumbling organizer Delbert, who's the Hamilton family lawyer. Some of the side plots, like the folk rock trio having a love triangle, Bill, Tom, and Mary, which is clearly a parody of Peter, Paul, and Mary, come to us as John Triplett tries to put the Walker Gala together. Others, like Elliot Gould's cameo, or the sad story of PFC Glenn Kelly, or Shelley Duvall's role as L.A. Joan, a teenage groupie who's supposed to be in Nashville to see her dying aunt, are plots we encounter around the Hamilton family. A heartbreaking major plot involves Barbara Jean having a nervous breakdown and being hospitalized on the same floor as L.A. Joan's aunt. Still others, like Suleen Gay and Winifred, are local women who are trying to break into the Nashville scene. Altman takes pains to remind us that the Nashville country scene is very much apart from Hollywood, and yet is equally obsessed with spectacle and its own importance.
Well, we're going to line up a lot of movie stars. I think people down here feel that movie stars are eccentric. Crazy. I mean, well, a lot of them are. It's been said now.
Although the trappings and locations might be different, the same superficial obsession with fame and relationship to the general public exists in Hollywood and Nashville, as they do in any center of popular culture. Shelley Duvall's teenage groupie character in skimpy outfits that make her uncle say, "I'm sorry, she's from California," falls into the same routine in Nashville you'd have to imagine she did in Los Angeles. In a more sympathetic and sad storyline, Lily Tomlin plays Ned Beatty's wife, Linnea, who's trying to break through as a gospel singer and cares for her two deaf children. Rather than going with the swarmy and dishonest John Triplett, Altman and the audience's outsider gaze is captured by Geraldine Chaplin playing a possibly fake BBC documentarian named Opal. Opal may be just another crazy person latching onto fame, and it's hinted throughout the film she might not actually be a BBC documentarian. Nashville in 1975 also happens at the same time as the ongoing sexual revolution. For young men, but especially for women, acceptable sexual behavior and mores were rapidly shifting. Nashville explores affairs. Apparently everyone having an affair in Nashville does it with Keith Carradine. Affairs, casual hookups, and groupies are all part of the 24 storylines. Whether it's Lily Tomlin's Linnea being moved to sleep with Keith Carradine after hearing him play, needing a break from a mundane and difficult home life, or the folk music trio that's splitting apart because Mary is in love with Keith Carradine. And in the case of Shelley Duvall, the way that endlessly chasing pleasure can untether you from everything you should care about, to the raw exploitation that comes with the music business in general. The changing cultural and sexual mores are explored in a traditionally conservative cultural milieu. Country musicians and Nashville's residents hated the way that Altman portrayed their community and fans. They felt like the Hollywood director was just trying to poke fun at the hicks down south. However, Altman definitely caught on to the zeitgeist in a very real way. I would argue that Jimmy Carter, elected in 1976, latched onto the same synthesis of Southern charm, outsider populist energy, and the same pop cultural moment that Altman attempts to explore here. The sprawling and pretty incredible achievement of Nashville, with its 24 character threads, is considered Robert Altman's magnum opus, and for good reason.
All right, you get it. You get it, but help her off. I'm all right.
Get Walker out of here.
Get Walker out of here.
Come on, get up off your head. Wait a minute, man. Watch your head.
Y'all take it easy now. This isn't Dallas, it's Nashville.
Oh, man,
this is Nashville. You show them what we're made of. They can't do this to us here in Nashville.
Anyway, before I introduce the panel, let me say, please like this video and subscribe to the Movie Night Extravaganza YouTube channel. Also, we are now monetized, so if you have any pressing questions during this live show, send us a super chat. we are absolutely obligated by international law, human rights law, to answer it. We also have a Patreon, patreon.com/Movie Night Extra. All of our after parties are available on there forever. Okay, let me introduce the panel. Conan Neutron, co-host of Movie Night Extravaganza, host of Protonic Reversal, and frontman for Conan Neutron and the Secret Friends. Right now, Conan is working on Caterwaul 2023. Caterwaul Music Festival is going to be in Minneapolis from May 26th to 29th. Tickets are on sale now at caterwaul.org. Christina Oakes, when she's not dog sitting, you can find her streaming on Twitch at twitch.tv/cosmopolitics. You can find her on Twitter and Instagram at @cosmopolitics. Throw her some subs on Twitch. J. Andrew World, illustrator, book cover artist, comic designer, and artist for Give Them an Argument, co-host of Movie Night Extravaganza and Bad Takes. Nando Vila, head of studio at Exile Content Studio, producer of Trumpland and Trumpland Kill All Normies, and has worked for a variety of media companies, including Fusion, Jacobin, and TYT. He also hosts Woke Bros with Big Waz. I, of course, am your Academy Award nominated host in the supporting role, Forrest Miller. Let's bring out those nominees.
That's right. I forget. I always forget that tag. That works still. Hey Nando, welcome to the show, man.
How's it going? Just checking. You guys can hear me, right? This is
Yeah, you're a little low though. Tiny bit low.
I'm a little low. What about now?
Now it's good.
That's better. That's
Yeah,
better.
no, it's good. I'm a professional, you guys. I was ready. All my setup was perfect. So
Yeah, you were early even. Yeah.
yeah.
That's normally when we do the show.
Mostly because I fucked up on my end, the schedule and the time, and so I was like, oh, so that it was actually kind of nice. I had like an hour just to kill and
chill.
Yeah, it was good.
Get in the mindset, right?
Yeah.
I got ready at like 6. I was like, oh wait, we're starting at 9. Whoopsie. So I just
we are the car crash in Nashville as just a group of people trying to figure out when the correct time to come on this podcast is.
That's why we always do it at the same time. Anytime it's total nonsense otherwise. It's great to be talking about Nashville. This is this is the type of vibe movie that gets attributed to Magnolia, which is like a Nashville child, if you will, and also Shortcuts child. But this is all Altman. Altman, he's the master of this game, and this is arguably probably the best of this genre. And it's kind of hard to describe. It's like, okay, if you follow these people around in Nashville for a few days. What? That sounds terrible. No, it's great though. It's fantastic filmmaking.
I hate country music, but I like musicals.
It's how I assume that if you kind of take a bus to Nashville and just hang out there for a few days, you'd have probably the same list of experiences, which makes sense that Joan Tewksbury, who's credited as the writer, who's Altman's collaborator from this period. Literally, Altman was just go to Nashville and see what happens. And that sounds like a threat. It wasn't a threat, but he's like, go to Nashville for a few days. But the studio will pay for it, and just see what you see. Something that's taken directly out of it is the car. As you see behind us, she saw a multi-car pile up on the middle of the highway, and that made it into the movie.
I mean, the weird thing is when you told me to go to Nashville for the show, it did not end well.
We're covering Nashville. We didn't say to go to Nashville. Yeah.
Oh, damn it.
Yeah,
Whoopsies.
no, but I can't get my kidney back.
There you go.
Cricket.
Comedic Stylings at J. Andrew World, everybody. Nando, when's the first time you saw Nashville? When's the first time you saw this?
I would say maybe I might have been in when I watched Nashville. I was certainly too young. I think I was when I was kind of in my pretentious, annoying, budding cinephile phase in high school.
Right.
We discovered that our school library, you could just rent stuff for free, and that was the great. No one ever went to the library in my school. I don't know, it wasn't a thing, and we discovered that you can rent movies for free, and that's kind of when I first started watching a lot of these classic 1970s movies, and some of them I loved right away. And Nashville, I think, I mean, even if I had seen it maybe as an adult, I don't know if I would have gotten it right away. It's definitely a movie that the more you see it, the more it kind of washes over you, the more it lives within you. You start to realize this is this is like one of the greatest. This is one of the greatest movies ever made, and one of the greatest pieces I think of American popular art ever. Like the guy, fucking Altman, just like captures like America with like all of it, and a sort of central id of America without being like an annoying, pretentious dick. Like by like while twirling his little mustache and kind of giggling to himself as he's doing it. I mean, it's just there's nothing quite like it.
And
especially
it's
this
on
time too, especially like
it's on like the top 100 most influential, like AFI's list or whatever, you know, like 100 movies, 100 years or whatever. Like I think I read somewhere that it's number 73 or something on the list, which is pretty far down. But I mean, in the entire history of you know, at least 20th century filmmaking, like it ranks within that, like, you know,
the stiff competition. Yeah, it's like all of filmmaking. Well, and I think the repeated watching thing works out well too, because think about the fact that just how many characters there are, with not like side characters, but like fully realized stories that you dip in with these folks. They're doing this, then they're over here, and then they meet up over here, and then these ones, and the crisscrossing. And again, and I like Magnolia. People attribute that to P.T. Anderson, and I like Magnolia, but it's like, yo, that is inherently Altman. That is like pure uncut Altman. Flat out. And it's of course that kind of thing, because it's a fully realized world, will reward first of all anybody with any patience or ability to like sit with the story and a vibe, but you're going to be able to catch other things that you missed before, because there's things like crosstalk, like natural crosstalk in a way that actually happens in life, but in a way that's still cinematic, where it isn't just like, all right, you're at an annoying party and everyone's talking over each other. It's this like our after parties.
This goes beyond just an ensemble cast. Like everybody has like a starring role.
What's up with Jeff Goldblum? He just runs around on his tricycle.
I told her, like, Jeff Goldblum's in this movie. She's like, how? I'm like, she's like, what movie? What year this came out? I'm like, in the 70s. She's like, oh, he young.
And then he's like shaving in the junkyard. You never know why. Why? Doesn't, I don't know. He's not gonna tell you.
Well, I mean, no, they're camped out they're camped out in the junkyard. Like it seems like they're on tour or whatever. But yeah, and you know, this is pre RPG days, so you know, there's no such thing as a side character that takes you on a side quest to go. Like, but no, and I think it's kind of fascinating. It kind of also reminds me of like Linklater, like, you know, 20 years later doing Slacker. And I feel like totally, I guess, an opposite thing, but his love letter to Austin and Slacker, pretty much, you know, like kind of just following people around, reminds me of this a lot. But I don't feel like this is a love letter. I feel like the ironic distance that Altman keeps from all of his characters in this is very palpable,
which pissed off everybody actually in Nashville. Like, it's not like that. There were two things they were mad about. One, they said it wasn't like that, and two, their music didn't get used, which is the most quintessentially Nashville thing.
The actors themselves wrote the song. I mean, like, imagine
I love that, and I see that
director going to like make a movie today and being like, okay, actors, you're not only going to sing the songs, I need you to write the fucking songs. You know, all of them, and
great. I'm in.
You need to reflect your character and the fucking theme of the movie. You know what I mean? Which is. I mean, what's amazing about Nashville to me is that with all the different characters and the kind of aimless plot and the various different tones that exist within it, it all kind of holds together thematically remarkably well. Like there is a central theme. It's hard to.
Music was still good.
Country music was still good. It's hard to like kind of articulate it. And I'm sure Altman himself probably didn't even have it like written down somewhere, like the theme of Nashville is this. He just kind of felt it intuitively, but he was somehow able to convince all these people to develop these fully realized characters, all of them incredibly differently. You know, they're all just very different people, and all fully realized people, but they all kind of hang together perfectly. It's just it's one of the most remarkable achievements that I can think of in any movie.
So that's all great points. I completely agree, and I think that one of the things that people at the time were complaining about was like, you know, oh well, everyone's so like mersh and careeristic, and you didn't use any of my songs. It's so deeply hilarious. It's like you're so close to getting it. You're so close.
Like a character in Nashville, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And you have things like Philip Walker, replacement party candidate, who you never see, by the way, but his ubiquitous presence, and like that van as I going around and like we attribute that level of populism charitably at best to something like Ross Perot or something, right? Like, you know, an independent sort of corporatist, right, billionaire kind of thing. But if you listen to what he's saying, it's actually pretty like progressive stuff that's just sort of like it like in populist terminology. And the idea of there being an independent candidate in, let's be clear, swing state, Tennessee. Swing state.
Ooh,
This shows it's like
Tennessee. Lest we forget, you know.
Yeah. I mean, like this is it's practically science fiction in this day and age, but like it's such a great snapshot of the time, that bicentennial time. Forrest and I were talking. I don't remember, it was in the group chat or what, of just like how, like, you know, there was definitely like people that were like, oh, well, that's BS. And then when it came time around the bicentennial, I mean, everyone on the panel wasn't alive when this happened, but people would be like, oh, well, actually, yeah, it's pretty cool. You know, which is sort of like the Ukrainian flag of on your Twitter profile of the day.
Well, and actually, it's kind of funny. I think Nando talking about Rick Perlstein was the first time that I got it in my head. You and Ben talking about it, and I give them an argument. It was the first time I got it in my head. Oh, I should read Rick Perlstein. But he writes about in The Invisible Bridge. He takes all of the different bicentennial op-eds, pretty much, where people are like, this country is rotten. Like Nixon is just, you know, resigned. Everything is, you know, going to shit. Jimmy Carter's kind of just become president. There's like somewhat of a hopeful moment, but they're like, no one's going to care about the bicentennial. You know what I mean? And then, you know, on the bicentennial, people are like, wow, I just feel so patriotic. Just
right.
You know.
Again, science fiction, right?
Who knows? America 200. Let's go.
Yeah, well, those Rick Perlstein books, I think, were really opened my eyes. I mean, that and beyond, just like the 1970s were basically the last gasp of America as a potentially more decent country than it became. You know, there was this kind of moment, especially around the church committee. Like, you know, Mark Ames called it kind of an American glasnost. There was this moment where maybe we could have become a better society, a better country, reined in some of the worst excesses of, you know, the national security state, whatever, you know what I mean? Like that there was this kind of opening, an opportunity to really transform the country. And then we just got Reaganism, and then the rest is history. And I think like watching Nashville and understanding the 1970s and understanding that opportunity and then the door shutting, it seems like Altman almost predicted that. I mean, I think the songs that bookend Nashville, I think really kind of set the theme perfectly, which is like, you know, the Henry Gibson character singing "We must be doing something right to last 200 years." And then,
amazing, like that
amazing.
super schmaltz, like, you know, like
Totally.
gas
Like,
station
like,
music is what we used to call it.
Yeah, with the pretentious kind of military march drums and shit.
Yeah.
And then the final song, after Barbara Jean gets killed, which is something like people saying like, "You may say that I ain't free, but it don't worry me." You know what I mean? Like
which is
like
played...
that is to me Reaganism in a nutshell. Like, right? That is to me a sort of American desire to just put your head in the sand and just be like, la la la, I don't care, you know, like blah, blah, you know, like I'm just gonna be this,
well, and
you know,
a noted Lothario, because remember it was Keith Carradine's character that wrote that song, or rather,
and throughout the movie you have it at different moments, right? You have the audience that are clapping and singing "It Don't Worry Me" at, you know, the trio as they're standing up there, because it's supposed to be their big, you know, the Peter, Paul, and Mary type trio. It's supposed to be, or as I call it,
that's for sure,
menage a folk trio. There's supposed to be like them on stage like singing that or whatever, and that's like their one big hit that everyone, like, you know, keeps clapping at them or whatever when they're playing. And then later on in it they also sing it a different time too, which kind of reminds me of I finally watched The Long Goodbye last night, like the entirety of it, because I've watched clips of it, but it kind of reminds me of how throughout The Long Goodbye, right, like they're teasing that song until he finally, you know, caps the guy, and then he sings, like, he hums a different song. Like, it's like the whole movie was trying to get that song out of his head. But in the same way they do that with "It Don't Worry Me," which is a song written by Keith Carradine, and the seed of this movie comes from Keith Carradine being at a cast party for Thieves Like Us, playing on like a guitar or whatever, like playing "It Don't Worry Me" and playing his like "I'm Easy," which were both, you know, songs written by him. And he didn't want to be that character in the movie, but like Robert Altman was like, no, these are like yoinked the fucking music from him. And like, you know, I'm doing this for the movie now, and tried to give that, you know, like to Gary Busey, I guess. Like that was supposed to be the Keith Carradine character, which would have
Who
meant
was a leading man at the time? Let's
Yeah.
let's level set for people that are not
For those
familiar with the
who don't
fact.
know, once upon a time, Gary Busey was a leading actor and
And a
phenomenal
good actor too. Yeah, not just like the punchline of a joke.
And he wrote the best song in this movie.
Right. Yeah, he also is a songwriter too, and that's one of the reasons why he played what do you call it, Buddy Holly. But anyway, yeah, no, all those are great points, and I think you can also see it in little areas where the character's given room to expand. Like, we mentioned the Hayden Hamilton character. I love that. I can't remember his wife's name, but like how she's like tells that thing about like. Basically, like it's almost a little soliloquy about like talking about politics and about how like with the Kennedys, she has a deep affinity for the Kennedys.
Yeah, see, that's not supposed to be his wife. That's supposed to be just like the bar owner of the bar.
Oh, really? Okay, it's super. It wasn't very clear to me, but okay, whatever the relationship.
I had to look at the kind of a plot summary for it. So I guess that's just like one of the bar owners at the place that he works at, and they're like sleeping together. Who's like an alcoholic, and she's drunk the whole movie. There's a kind of they hint at it. There's the backstory, and I think that's why he sings that song where he's like, "Let's stay together for the kids" or whatever. The wife,
which is an incredible song, but there is a long history of those style songs.
Also, all those songs were recorded live.
Something happened. They got divorced. Right. The wife moved to Paris with whatever guy, I think. And they hint it throughout the movie, but they never quite come out and say it.
Yeah, and that could just be a movie in and of itself, right?
Yeah,
just like most of these storylines. But specifically, so whatever the relationship, and I guess I didn't know any of that, but like, I love that. Like, she goes on this little thing about like, politics, this and that. But the Kennedy boys, that we got it wrong in that one. Like, and the thing where like ultimately, it's very clear they're like traditional conservative, at best we'll say Rockefeller Republican types. Around this time, right? Like that's what you call a Rockefeller Republican, which people still think exists, and they do not. It's an extinct species. But like the fact that there's a deep affinity for the Kennedys specifically, not the least of which tying in with the sort of superficial nature of so many other storylines and characters in the movie, is that like handsome guys, right? And like that, and so that's the intro, and it's so great because it fits perfectly with these overarching, very superficial aspects of things that cause these coalitions and cause these agenda items and things like that. And it's just a little improv, like little thing right there. It's a fantastic scene, and there's so many of them.
But also like just the little like Altman is so kind of. I mean, it's kind of like facile to say like he hits both sides, but like the Keith Carradine character who's like like a despicable human being, obviously like on every level, just a totally full of shit guy. When they're in the airport and he sees the army sergeant, he just looks at him and he goes like, "Hey Sarge, you kill anyone today?" He's just like an annoying like one of those guys. You know what I mean? Like, and coming from him, it's just like dude, you're the most full of shit guy in the world. Like you don't even
amazing, right? Like so
it's great.
So hypocritical, and conservatives to this day still treat any sort of protest as if it's like that guy and that type of discourse for sure.
Well, also, and the thing to I think that's like really funny about it is that it's clearly like a band that's like trying to do like the folk thing, but also like apolitical, like purely apolitical, because later on when he's trying to get them to appear at the thing, you know what I mean? She's like, well, we're registered Democrats. And he's like, yeah, but that doesn't matter. Like, I don't really care about politics. And he says the same thing in that scene. Yeah. He's like, I don't care about politics, but I'll be a dick to this fucking, hey, Sarge, you kill anyone today, guy.
Yeah. Well, because that's part of the his identity, right? Like, it's sort of like it's well, and I love the Michael Murphy character. Of course, Michael Murphy, he's been in a bunch of stuff. We don't speak the name of the director of Manhattan, but he's great in that. But Tanner 88. His character in that is like, I mean, anyone that's remotely interested in politics, you gotta watch Tanner 88. Yeah. It's absolutely fantastic. But I like that here's a consultant, right? Like his character, and sort of like the 70s version of like the shifty consultant, which is adorable by modern
and the populist kind of outsider candidate is like, has got like the machinery underneath him, the same old greasy, disgusting machinery underneath him, and like leveraging celebrity, like all the same bullshit that anyone else would do is just hilarious.
And it's amazing that it's such a different era because like calling it the replacement party is sort of like ooh, like that's loaded term this day and age. But
the great replacement is coming. Hal Phillips Walker. So Hal Phillips Walker is actually played
Wait.
both
The Great Replacement
played
theory's not
and
about the
based
band?
on Thomas Hal Phillips, who's a novelist and kind of country songwriter from this time period, who does the voice and everything. But he was actually like a Democrat, and I guess his brother was a person that like ran for governor, and he tried to do his brother's campaign as a Republican. He was a lifelong Democrat that actually was obsessed with both FDR and Kennedy. So like I feel like a lot of those side comments are kind of taken out of his like exact experience.
Well, because it wasn't that long ago. Think about the time period this is, right? That's like less than 10 years ago, like in the time period of this film. It's like recent history. It's like Occupy like distance.
Yeah.
Didn't expect that to be the conversation killer. I think also how amazing.
Well, I was processing what you just said.
Fair enough. How amazing after again, spoiler alert for a movie that is older than I am. That line, this isn't Dallas, this is Nashville. What a great line! Oh my god! Because first of all, it tells you everything you need to know about that guy.
Yeah, as a Texan, I'm offended by that, and I will. I'm now required to hate him. So,
but it's easy to forget how many like political assassinations and like different shootings happened around this time, right? Like three times. I mean, the final one, Squeaky Fromm got arrested or whatever. But like they tried to assassinate Gerald Ford when he was standing up there talking, like bumbling around or whatever.
Yeah,
like, 3 different people took a shot at him. There's like
she has any regrets for that too.
There's just there's all of these political assassinations, not just the Kennedys, that happened like on stage in the middle of like rallies, shootings of celebrities, shootings of politicians, and I feel like we've lost that cultural memory because security
like,
is
after Reagan, like nobody's tried. And it's like, come on, people, you had plenty of chances to go after Reagan.
Yeah, they tried with a few congressmen and stuff.
Yeah,
not the president.
It's kind of sad that
you have the one the Gifford shooting or whatever on the congressional baseball field, but I mean. That's still, it's different than like what it used to be, where you could like, Taxi Driver makes fun of this too, right? Like, or like,
well, also Congressman Leo Ryan got assassinated while in Jonestown.
That's true.
I think he's like one of the few congressmen to actually be assassinated while in office, and that happened in '78.
Well, and I'm blanking on her name.
She was going to do a shoe at Bush,
Absolute hero. Follow him on Twitter.
Do you really? That's funny.
Yeah. He is actually fluent in English. So occasionally I understand what he's saying.
Has he done anything else other than that? I mean, that's like
he's a journalist. He's a noted journalist in the area. So he's always writing stories.
That's like the never mind of shoe throwing. Like it's sort of like there's no one's ever going to.
We always celebrate it every year. He's like, exactly. I did what I had to do.
I should invite him on the show.
But the other thing that this kind of the other thing this kind of pairs is George Wallace getting shot on stage during his I think it was 1972 if I'm not mistaken presidential campaign, which was down in the South, and he was demagoguing away doing the same kind of, I mean, not the same kind of pilot, but like it's the same kind of outsider like Southern tour that you would do for your presidential campaign after taking off, which in a very different way, but but
it was it was proto Buchanan, Trump, like all of that sort of like right wing outrage machine. Before that,
in my day, Donald Trump would actually criticize Pat Buchanan.
The story behind Donald Trump ran in the Reform Party so that Pat Buchanan wouldn't be their person. But so George Wallace's shooting happened because the guy didn't have any like idea about like his segregation and shit. He was just like, I want to be famous. And I feel like in this movie, it kind of takes the same thing. There's no necessarily like political motive behind it because he ends up shooting Barbara Jean. He just kind of angered and seems like he wants to be somebody. It isn't somebody, and he's talking to his mom on the phone, obviously, and like is shifty the entire movie. And it's interesting. You think it's going to be the soldier guy. It seems like it for the first half of the movie, and
who ends up stopping it from being worse.
I have a random film fact.
Okay, lay it on us.
So this movie's 11 Golden Globe nominations remains the most for a single film, I think. Wow. And it also received 4 nominations in a single acting category. This was and remains unprecedented for major film award shows.
Dang.
That's how much of a masterpiece this film is.
Well, how do you divide? I mean, how do you divide?
Class of Best Picture, you know, was one of those, one of that 1975 class, like the Cuckoo's Nest.
Yeah, it was like
a lot of great
Nashville,
films.
Cuckoo's Nest. Was it The Conversation, or am I thinking of it? Like
Dog Day Afternoon, maybe.
Dog Day Afternoon. Yeah. Like that's a crazy
like it's just
year.
like just bang like classic after classic after classic, and
Who did
I think Keith
vote
Carradine
for?
won for I'm Easy for the song, and I think that was the only win. But is this,
it was the not to of its year. Yeah.
It's like a foreign novelty to most coastal sickos, you know.
Yep.
But is this your guys' first time in watching Nashville, or are you guys big Nashville heads?
No, well, post
I haven't
9/11
seen it since
country
I was a
music I
child.
despise. But I love musicals, so like I saw this years ago because I was really into like I was into watching like Sweet Dreams by Patsy Cline and Coal Miner's Daughter by Loretta Lynn. So this kind of I discovered that film through those films. So I was like, oh, I might like it, and I was like, oh no, this is country music.
Yeah,
that's funny, J. Hutch. I watched it as a kid, but like kind of like didn't quite connect with it, and I always kind of meant to come back with it. Shortcuts is the one
when we were kids, wasn't it?
What's that, Andy?
It was kind of ubiquitous whenever we were kids.
It was around. It was around.
Yeah, I mean, granted, I was in Georgia, so like not that far from Nashville, and the Misty Mountain Boys did play Six Flags when I was there.
He got it in.
And my sister got to sing with them once. There's the story. That's it. That's
the story. I was just gonna say, for me, I obsessed on Shortcuts. That was the movie that like I obsessed on, which obviously comes like a little bit later. That was like my, and then later The Players, like one of my favorites of all time, which we've talked about before. But yeah, like it's that's. I kind of feel like I view movies differently now and like get different things out of them than I did when I was younger, for sure, as to most people. But that goes back to what you were saying earlier, right? This rewards multiple viewings.
I've seen it maybe 8 or 9 times.
Ooh, what a record!
And I try as a thinking adult, like I finally am now. I try to watch it like at least once a year. And every single time it just feels different, and you latch on to different characters and different little storylines that in previous viewings it's like almost like watching an entirely new movie. I'm seeing it at the New Beverly next weekend. They're screening it, and I'm like, I cannot miss that. It's just it really does reward kind of more, like the more you watch it, the more it gives you, the more you like it, the more you think about it, the more you come back to it, you watch it again, and then you love it more.
Watching it 8 times. Have you latched on to the the guy that finally shoots her and has the violin case?
Yeah.
Like but like do you think there are clues about his motive like sprinkled throughout it? Or because I mean there are the scenes obviously that I've noticed, like I watched it twice. I noticed the scenes where he's like kind of like staring at her, and like clearly like kind of like her voice or whatever sends him into a rage, but I don't know if like I don't know when he decides to
It's honestly one of the and I'll forgive Altman for not, with 25 major speaking parts, all of whom feel, all of their stories feel rich and realize like the killer of Barbara Jean does feel kind of like the most underdeveloped part of the whole movie. Whereas, Lily Tomlin, like if you think about like any of these people, like they're not on screen for that long, comparatively speaking, but like you think that there's like a whole movie there. The killer story is probably the least interesting one. I mean, although Barbara Jean's is one of the most interesting ones, like that her, kind of that type of person, the sort of performer who's been, just kind of they've wrung everything out of her, and she can still kind of get up there and sing. I mean,
but she's doing these kind of like Joe Biden-esque, like just rambling, like, listen, Jack, like, what are you talking about?
But that was like a thing. Like, I mean, this is before Elvis died and stuff. But like, I was reminded a little bit of Elvis. By the end of his life, he was just kind of like, pretty much just they plopped him up there and he would do his thing, and he was
saying that to hold the mic for him.
And I was reminded like that they. Once you kind of get the irony is like once you achieve that success, and they all want to be her. She's the one. Like even Haven Hamilton kind of is. That she's clearly the top dog of all the singers in the film. That she's that once you do achieve that, they just wring you out. Like they just squeeze every last drop you have.
Also,
which happens to be true. Look at Loretta Lynn, who like she's based on.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
like also a lot of the according to Robert Altman, a lot of the musicians did not like the songs. Like people like within like the area were like, you should have used our songs instead because our songs are a lot better. We're like,
because they get money too. That's the other reason why they want
to get the royalties.
and like if you actually go to Nashville, one of the things about that city is that everybody who's there is like trying to break into country music. One of my favorite visual artists went to Nashville to become a mandolin player, and now he's a well-respected printmaker.
I think I say well-respected mandolin player, which I was like that sentence has never been uttered.
Well-respected mandolin player.
But he did the cover of Ray Gun magazine, which puts it in perspective. If you know what I'm talking about.
Well, so there's that aspirational nature of everybody wanting to be a star. You have certain stories that are tougher than others. Like you have the whole the Sue Lin character who's like thinks she's a singer and she's not. She's being hired to basically be a hot chick, and like that's a harsh epiphany, and that's just absolutely terrible and heartbreaking. But then you have like what I think I love too is you have the Albuquerque character who's just at large most of the movie, like the runaway bride, right? And you're like, oh, she's just like like. All right, she's just annoying, and she's another fame seeker, whatever. And then like post assassination, she gets on mic and sings that song, and it's like, oh no, she's actually really good, which is crazy because she's the one now, right? Yeah,
there's someone new. There's always someone new.
Replacement party. Yeah.
Speaking of Albuquerque, Bernadette Peters and Bette Midler were offered the role.
Really?
Yep.
Wow. Well, I think. Well, let's see. Okay, 75.
I can see Bernadette Peters.
Yeah, I think Bette Midler would be a little bit too.
I know who Barbara.
Too much
Harris
presence.
Is, obviously.
Too much presence. Yeah.
Yes.
Like I kind of like it that she presents as like mousier even than like she is like for most of the movie, and like in these awkward like the hallway where she's talking to Barbara Jane and stuff, and like trying to it's like, oh my god, this is so awkward. It's like well the term we use in music is it's a punisher. So someone that comes up and just starts talking to you and won't let you go is like it's you're punishing them, like they're being punished. So it's like, she's being a total punisher.
Well, and the funniest scene I think in the entire movie, she's standing on the racetrack, the Nashville racetrack, and singing. And but because the cars are going by, he has like a small chance to sing, but like and it's just as she opens her mouth. And there's so many like little, I mean, the comedic timing in this is great, right? Because even after like the tragedy, like it feels like this movie was almost building up to like a punchline, which is, Barbara Jean kind of getting killed. But then within the wake of that, first of all, you see the John Triplett character, like the, kind of wander away, like, oh, I guess this is just another day for me, like trying to figure out, this campaign thing. But then you also see it close up, goes into Celine Gay's face, which is like dejected, which is like, once again, I've been thwarted the chance to like sing on a stage. And it's this woman that's been like running around drunk the entire movie, trying to get it backstage or whatever, but like, getting shut out because she's kind of a little bit older, I think. And she doesn't have like the body or something that they're trying to, use and wring her out, because it's a similar kind of exploitation and like wanting to wring somebody out. But in that case, it's purely physical, which is as opposed to like talent wise, which is what they're doing to Barbara Jean.
There's a lot of there's like a lot of different like inspirations of who all these characters are based off of. Like obviously Loretta Lynn. There's also
that's
like
the biggest
Lynn
one.
Anderson, which is Connie White, Chris Scott, which is Karen Black's character. Keith Carrady's character is based off of Chris Christopherson, apparently. I mean, it's just
Really?
also too like
I can see it.
Bill and Mary inspired.
Decent
Bill.
actor in his own right, I might add.
Yeah.
Chris Christopherson's a good actor.
Star is Born, dude.
Yeah, he's fucking great, man.
Yeah, also Bill and Mary were inspired by Bill Danoff and Taffy Niverett, who later became the Starline vocal band Afternoon Delight.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
That song is totally about dessert.
It's that's a good Arrested Development bit, but it's also they're also based clearly off of like Peter, Paul, and Mary, which is another like folk menage a folk trio that.
And how great is that? Is that scene?
Rock and roll music.
How good is that scene where he's singing the song "I'm Easy" and then like you like see like the multiple different women that all like assume it's about them.
Amazing.
Like it's such a great scene where you're like, oh,
the timing. Oh my god.
So I have this clip of Keith Carradine talking.
Nice.
I'm gonna try to avoid doing a lot of clips while Nando's here because I want to get his thoughts on stuff. But I thought this was really cool.
Sure.
They interviewed Keith Carradine talking about how the music came about.
Hey, John.
Hello.
I started songwriting when I was a teenager, and I had actually written "I'm Easy" when I was in New York. I was 19 years old when I wrote that one. "It Don't Worry Me," that was inspired by the movie I did with Lee Marvin and Ernest Borgnine that Robert Aldrich directed, Emperor of the North. It was really sort of a hobo song. And then "Honey, Won't You Let Me Be Your Friend" was a song I'd written in the early 70s. We were filming Thieves Like Us, and I think I had my guitar and I was playing some of my songs at this party, and Joan and Bob heard the stuff. So I don't think of my music as being the genesis of the idea of doing the movie Nashville, but I do think that them hearing my music at that point had a lot to do with how the film was ultimately conceived and the idea of actors coming in and bringing their music to the production.
Bill and Mary.
And I was originally cast in the role of Bill, and Gary Busey was originally scheduled to play Tom. And then Gary bowed out because he chose to do a pilot for a television series called The Texas Wheelers with Jack Elam. And one can easily imagine Busey playing that kind of a person. Bob, I think, took a perverse pleasure in putting me into that role, knowing how uncomfortable it would make me to play that kind of a guy.
Don't worry me.
I wasn't comfortable with who I was being asked to be in the movie. I didn't like the guy, and I was young enough and immature enough to have a problem with having to play somebody that I didn't like. And I remember at one point, halfway through filming, I think it was while we were doing the Exit In stuff, and I was feeling particularly lost and at sea and uncomfortable. And I went to Bob and said, "Bob, I'm not happy. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't feel good about it." And he just said, "You're fine. You're fine." And he walked. He wouldn't talk to me about it. He knew exactly what he was doing. And what you see in the film, the end result is this actor who doesn't like the character he's playing. Well, what the audience gets is a guy who doesn't like himself. So smart.
I'm going to play something that I wrote just recently. I came here to record. I'm going to dedicate this to someone kind of special who just might be here tonight. There's a song called "I'm Easy."
In the Exit In scene, this thing of "I'm Easy" was really an entreaty from an abject narcissist.
It's not my way to love you just when no one's looking. It's not my way to take your hand if I'm not sure.
It wasn't the simple love song that I had written. It became something else. It became an incredible manipulation.
The message of the music is that you listen, I'll fall for you if you don't lie to me, basically, And he was a guy who, as a character, wasn't going to fall for anybody, especially because he was lying.
You're not half as free. You wander as you claim. But I'm easy. Yeah, I'm easy.
But that scene, you could have dropped a pin if the music was off while we were shooting it. The song just does that to you. And then when everybody realized, wait a second, oh yeah, he's screwing her. And that's, oh yeah.
Say you want me, I'll come running without taking time to think. Because I'm easy. Yeah, I'm easy.
There was something kind of beautifully cynical about it, but that was Bob.
That was Bob.
That was Bob. R.I.P.
I love the idea that he is fine and thieves like us playing like a a thief and a murderer and whatever like on the
Yeah,
run.
that's okay. But a womanizer, no.
But in that movie, he's like he falls in love with Shelley Duvall and he's like, well, that guy is faithful, right? Like in like a Bonnie and Clyde kind of.
You know, no one like the hypocrite is what really I think is the hardest thing to. This is the last thing anyone wants to be. You know, like a thief, there's like something kind of thrilling about that, or there's like
But no honor, because there's no honor, among thieves.
That's true, but there's like a kind of sexiness to it almost, and like it's but a hypocrite is someone who's full of shit is hard.
Yeah, and no, I mean, and it's understandable why. I mean, this person is like a total wastoid kind of, and like the scenes where he's like calling up like the next person or whatever, and he's like talking to like the woman he presumably has like a kid with or something, and he's like, oh, when are you gonna come here? And then like the second she says she can't come there, he like hangs up. Like this is someone who, much like Shelley Duvall's character, I think in almost like a mirror kind of sense, is so busy chasing pleasure that like there's no moment of time where, I mean, he obviously does hate himself. Like there's no moment in time where he's still. He's just kind of in this room, like for half the movie, just calling people up and is unable to just kind of sit still and be with himself. Like he hates himself to that level.
Yeah, and I think that's like I like that Keith Carradine was able to use the fact that he didn't like the character to kind of internalize it to make for a better character, because I think it's kind of clear, that's like that's a dude who's living high on the hog, so to speak, but doesn't necessarily think of himself as the greatest person at the end of the day in the wee hours of the night. But it's also not letting that slow him down either. Also, I was trying to look it up. MASH is 1970. I think Altman was that was his first, like he did a lot of movies before that. That was his first big movie. It's a huge movie. Yeah. He was in his 40s. I know that. I remember he was in his 40s. And that obviously
since the early 50s, he was like a TV director doing kind of, run of the mill, unremarkable TV, like in the early 50s. I mean, it's crazy how long he was kind of hanging around before he became a big deal.
He did he did I think 2 or 3 episodes of Alfred Hitchcock Presents as a before he was a film director.
I heard back from our top math experts, he was 45 years old when MASH came out. So
yeah, and that was, I mean, because that era, right, like the new Hollywood era, there was all the movie brats. They were all like kind of young, and he was just like way older than them,
by a large margin. Yeah,
way older than them, and kind of after MASH just rattled off a string of just absolute bangers, just banger after banger. I mean, my favorite is Nashville. I mean, I don't know. Maybe the kids, the Zoomers love The Long Goodbye. Like, there's kind of like a Long Goodbye thing now, and I love The Long Goodbye. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's I went to see a screening of it with Elliot Gould 3 weeks ago here in LA, and he was the best, and he was so charming and funny. But I don't know, man. Nashville is just it's so amazing to me that he was able to pull off that movie, and it's just so perfect, and it's so, the degree of difficulty of pulling that off is so high to me. I think people like The Long Goodbye. I don't know, maybe because like Elliot Gould is like the coolest guy ever in that movie, but and likable, like a good human being, like a decent guy. Whereas no one in Nashville, maybe outside of Lily Tomlin, is a decent human being. But man, I'm just partial to Nashville. I mean, I fucking love that movie.
Well, it's such a great run. you know, and again, as you mentioned, define a form, but it's a form that's hard to do because to do it and have humanity to it, and to show people as these characters with nuance and that do have flaws. Even Lily Tomlin, not blameless, you know, probably the most principled character of a bunch of them, but like everybody's got a little bit on them, and that's hard to do. That's really difficult to pull off.
Well, I mean, I think go ahead.
Go ahead, Forrest.
No, and I think the aspect of it that's like the sexual revolution that's going on at this time that kind of stops in its tracks a few years later when, you know, the AIDS epidemic starts. But like, you know, still going strong at this point. It's interesting to see the way that kind of affects like a housewife like Lily Tomlin's character, who isn't going around, you know, thinking like, oh well, I'm gonna sleep around, but like does in the end get into bed with somebody because she just needs that like I think
because he was easy
and
why.
Yeah, well, and she needs the
Sunday
break
morning.
she needs like the detached break from, you know, having a really stressful family life. I'm sure with, you know, like 2 deaf kids and you know a husband
Maybe
that's
she
running
should
around.
become a missionary.
Well, so I think that it is kind of fascinating because you see on the other side, like either Shelley Duvall's character or you know, even like the you know, Charlie Chaplin's daughter, like the fake BBC lady,
BBC
like,
journalist.
yeah, like the way that kind of the sexual
so
revolution has like affected people is just you know, some people are just endlessly seeking pleasure. I mean, on top of that, I mean, you know, Keith Carradine's character too, like this endless quest for pleasure that you can never really have that satiated, or you have you know, someone that kind of is willing to kind of slip out of a marriage for that small little bit of time and then go back to it because it's like, you know, it's not as
it's such a triumph of like Altman's directing and especially Lily Tomlin's acting, and I think this was like her first movie role.
Yeah, this is her first movie.
I was gonna say if it isn't the first, it's near it, but yeah, that's awesome.
It's just such a triumph that, like, you know, she plays this kind of ultra sympathetic character, right? I mean, the housewife that, like, you know, loving mother of these 2 kids who are deaf and with like the husband who doesn't give a shit, you know, just ultra sympathetic, who it's not that she does a bad thing, like, who, you know, like, we're not like morally judging, you know, someone slipping out of their marriage over, especially when they're married to Ned Beatty, who's a fucking dick, but like to fall for Keith Carradine's, you know, slimy charm and like the most obvious fucking, you know what I mean, playboy like in the universe, but come out on the other side like with dignity intact, and like, you know, you don't think like she, you know, she was like definitely like a little angry about it but not defeated by it, you know. Is just like, it's just like a little amazing, and it's just one vignette out of millions that are in Nashville, and it's just like, it's just like a perfectly told little story, you know, of these complex characters interacting and then just kind of resolving.
Yeah. And Keith Carradine's not afraid to play complex characters. I mean, I think the first movie I ever saw him in was Pretty Baby. Yeah, I was young. I probably shouldn't have watched that.
I feel like that comes up a lot in this show. Probably shouldn't have watched this young. I think we say that every show. Yeah,
but I feel like the fact that this character that he's playing is just so shallow, and like there's really nothing to him except that vacuous hole that he's just trying to fill through these, like, you know, one night stands or whatever. Like that makes sense why he'd detest that character more than you know, any of the complex characters, because that's not a complex character. It's just a guy that hates himself and is in a hotel room, like, you know,
it's a good looking, talented dude who's taking complete advantage of both of those things.
Yeah,
found in the pussy.
And like that was considered aspirational, not regrettable at the time. You know, whatever everyone's objective morality may be, like, it was, you know,
we're all horrible.
How good is the party scene with Elliot Gould, who I guess was just like around.
Just around.
Just like, hey, you want to do a couple scenes? Like that whole sequence is amazing, and the Geraldine Chaplin, like, it is so fucking funny.
How she gets out of that conversation like she's on fire. It was like, oh, Elliot Gould.
Later. Right.
I also love I also love Ned Beatty's character not knowing who Elliot Gould is, or like that he's a celebrity or whatever, and then just that, like, this, because you know that that's not like a scripted like scene, you know what I mean? Like it just kind of popped up, as a lot of this movie is kind of improvised, and just to have him like bumble through and be like, oh man, I just treated him like anybody, like and that's a movie star. And the same they introduced him as like whatever, like Hamilton is like oh well, that's that guy with the curly hair. Like that definitely is how like somebody's like parents or something would talk about any number of new celebrities or whatever. Like the actor with the curly hair. Tell him to come on over.
Well, and it's like this era of Ned Beatty especially is peak bumbling. Like he does bumbling better than like anyone. And then of course goes against type for something like Network, where it's like, oh, you're the scariest dude in the history of creation. Fantastic. Obviously great actor, but like even like look at like when he's Mikey and Nicky, when he's like the terrible hitman who's just like
he's just not
like
a pig.
Yeah, that's probably the most obvious one. Yeah, I mean, he bumbled himself into quite the situation.
Well, and Network's a year before this movie's comes out, right? Network comes out, so it's like he's atoning 1 year and he's bumbling the next year.
And then like Superman, I think is probably his most bumbling.
Oh, that's right. I think
doesn't
Donner
feel like a
Superman,
pig in that movie, but he's Gene Hackman's henchman.
That's right. I forgot. I kind of forgot. Yeah, I gotta say, I think the Richard Donner Superman, like, is the Christopher Reeve Superman, is probably the best depiction of the character.
Yeah,
so far. We'll see how this new one, the James Gunn one, we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, James Gunn, give him a chance. God, man, people gotta say shit on Twitter about James Gunn. I'm like,
I like how James Gunn walked in and then fired Henry Cavill. Like that's the first thing he did. It's like walking into the cafeteria and punching the biggest guy in the face.
I've seen Henry Cavill in movies, and he'd make a great Superman. It's just I don't know what he was doing in the Superman movies with Zack Snyder.
That mustache got CGI'd out and everything went downhill from there.
All right, let's this is classic after party material. I know I brought it up, but I think that there's so much here in Nashville. Like, do you guys think? Because I think the only recent modern example I can think of, and I brought it up at least 4 times already, is Magnolia, which I do like, and it was considered a filmmaking triumph at the time, and I was like, have y'all ever watched Altman? I mean, it's good, but have y'all ever watched Altman? Because people just don't do that kind of like level of interconnected stories and overlapping stories anymore. In movies, they do it in streaming television is when they do it.
Yeah, they did before streaming became big. There was that ABC show called Nashville that my mom loved because it was all about country artists and interpersonal dramas and shit like that.
I got so pissed off. I was like looking at IMDb and that came up instead of this movie, and I got mad even though I didn't know what it was. I was like super pissed.
Well, I think this kind of movie does sometimes come around, but it's like it's treated differently, like something like the butterfly effect kind of thing, or any of kind of a lot of Linklater's work, like kind of doing it, but it's like vignettes, and this movie is not treating it like vignettes. It's literally treating this as a moving painting, and I don't see that really happening that often in any kind of
The
cinema.
Wire, maybe The Wire.
It's The Wire, but
because there's a lot of characters, right? A lot of storylines, and all interconnects.
And each time they switch it up, and they have the characters kind of somehow still be in the new place. So I guess that works out.
I love PTA. I would never besmirch PTA.
I do too. I'm not trying to talk trash about Magnolia. I need to make that clear.
And I love Magnolia, but like the difference between PTA and Altman is that Altman makes it look effortless and easy.
Yes.
And he's got the self-confidence to not draw attention.
Easy.
Very easy. He's very easy. Whereas PTA has got like that kind of drama school nerd or something, type thing where he's like, look at
check it out.
Things I'm doing.
Yeah.
Did you guys notice that? Did you guys catch that? Did you guys get that? Like cool camera thing I just did. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, which is fine, and I love PTA and I love all that shit. But what's to me so remarkable of Altman is that, and maybe it's because he achieved success as an older man, and whereas PTA was like this kind of 25-year-old wonderkind, that he was just like, he could just like lean back and smoke a joint and be like, check it out, I'm in Nashville. Like I don't need to I don't need to draw attention to literally anything about this movie. It's all just there, and it's all kind of. It's got like that kind of detached coolness that is just requires so much self-confidence to even attempt.
That's the correct
I totally forgot that. Altman's last movie that he directed was The Prairie Home Companion, which feels like one set piece from this movie, kind of for 2 hours or whatever. Like just the Grand Ole Opry. If they stayed in the Grand Ole Opry for 2 hours.
I mean, look, like, so first of all, to Nando's point, coolness is the correct term. And there's a naturalism to what he does that makes it a different experience. And again, it's there in Shortcuts as well. It's there in the long shot that begins the player. That's the big homage to the Orson Welles movie. Can't think of it right now. But like, there's a naturalism to it. Thank you. The Touch of Evil homage, where it's all like one long composed shot in the player. But like, I think that because of that naturalism, it does seem cool. And it does seem like you're just like, oh, you're just getting a window into these people's worlds for like a minute or two. And there's something really cool and magical about that. And I agree that like Paul Thomas Anderson, peace and love, there is a theater kid aspect to it. Yeah. You're right.
And PTA is like the perfect blend of Altman and Scorsese, right? Like Scorsese, like his direction is always like calling attention to itself, and it's like
very.
I love him, but
there it is.
He was also like a young wunderkind, right? Like he was, and also kind of a drama school nerd. I mean, I know he didn't actually go, but like that was like his whole thing. Like his, like look how many movies I know. Look how many, look at all the stuff I know. Look how. Kind of in a way, fundamentally insecure, kind of nerdy guys, I guess. You know what I mean? Are behind those, those two archetypes, and that Scorsese was famously incredibly shy and insecure. Altman was like famously incredibly cool and just kind of didn't give a shit. Wasn't impressed by anyone. Didn't want to impress anyone. Didn't need to impress anyone. And
his
like
press junkets are amazing, by the way. If you ever see him, like they have it like his bonus features in the Criterion, and it's so great. Like he just
also
could not give less of a fuck. Like and it's so great.
Also, Nashville is like the first film of his where he gets like complete and total control of.
That's right.
Like what he says goes, and no one's
the weird thing behind it is it's because they wanted to do like a country western studio outlet or whatever. And so like there was like I don't remember whether it was United Artists or I think it was Paramount wanted to do a country western style filmmaking thing, and he's like, I could do that. Like I could.
Yeah. Well, and again, going back, so two things. First of all, is that like all the people actually in Nashville at the time really hated it, and one of the reasons why they really hated it is because it's actually like it's a caricature, but it's a pretty accurate. It doesn't paint them very well, but it's like, well, this is kind of what you guys are all about, though. And then the other thing
is a caricature of, as they say in this, the people that pick the president. Like, I think that's a good definition,
which is an incredible thing to focus on at the bicentennial, right? Of like the defining thing of like. We must be doing something right.
We talk about we must be doing something right to last 200 years is the most American thing that anyone has ever said. Like 200 years is a millisecond. Like,
I know. Proud to be an American.
Like, civilizations that are thousands of years old. It's like, well,
we made it 200 years. I don't know about that.
Wow.
And they're recording it like a couple years before the bicentennial. Like, who knows if we're gonna crash and burn in the next couple?
And it's just the most dreadfully like treacle. Again, I ascribe it to this day as gas station music, even though that means something else now. Where like you can get the cassette or the CD like at the point of sale when you're buying your
talking about sending his son to war, proudly sending his son off to war. He would never go to war, obviously.
Because you meet his son and he's like a complete fail son working for doing his dad's business, but probably just can't really do anything else, and his dad's just keeping him busy.
Yeah. Exactly. He's getting busy himself. Real quick though, can we talk about Opal? Just how horrible of a character, meaning how delightfully entertaining she is as a through line through all of this. Is she a reporter? Maybe she isn't. Who knows? She seems to be horrible at her job. But
Altman says he's like he was essentially in love with her, like the actress. I mean, like Charlie Chaplin.
Charlie Chaplin's kid.
Yeah. And he was like, like I wanted to put her in anything because like I absolutely like love her, and like there's just like this attachment he felt towards her specifically. So it's kind of funny. He's like, hey, do you want to be a fake possibly fake British person.
Well, also like just understanding again, like he Altman has this ability to like look at like a Hollywood type, or look at country music wannabe in Nashville, or look at like a pretentious British person and just understand exactly like how to make fun of that person. Like he just
and no one ever questions her credentials too. That's another thing too, and that's something I picked up on this. I'm like, hey, no one actually like ever determines that she's from the BBC.
Well, there's one moment. There's one moment where somebody guy's like, I don't know what the BBC is.
Right. That's it.
This is the BBC,
which is also like an awesome scathing critique of America and Nashville.
And
like,
she also keeps saying some pretty fucking racist shit. Like,
the gospel thing. Like, Jesus.
He's like, it's so nice of him to let you people record in his whatever. Like, they don't have their black people don't have their own talent. Like, she's still treating it like she's like,
I see the side spin. If you take off their robes, they'll just be naked. And
yeah, it's like, lady, you need to stop. You're doing too much right now. Yeah,
it's like it's just as awkward as listening to Barbara Jean's like whole rant or whatever. But in her case, it's like you're like, no one's gonna stop because she has a British accent. Nobody stops her to like.
Her and Julie Christie both played in Dr. Zhivago.
But her monologue in the parking lot with the buses of just. Just amazingly stupid, not thought out stuff, and she just keeps going over it and over it, trying to get it right and not getting it right at all. Just not seeing, like what it, yeah, okay, that's an interesting spot to be talking about, but like, I don't know, you're not talking to any kids, you're not getting their perspective, you're just making up some fiction that you think you see.
And you see it as kind of like multiple series, like long shots too, where it's like it's just sort of following her around, and like, and then again, that's where you see yet again Jeff Goldblum non-speaking role. He just is the strong silent type in here, like camped out, and she's just like kind of wandering through these like tableaus and stuff, and it's. I mean, I love it because it's just sort of you have like a bunch of times you're like, what is with this chick? Like, what's her whole deal? Like, is she like? Why is she this way?
But it's it's 10 my time, but it's 7 Nando's time. Thanks so much for coming on. I know you gotta dip out of here.
Appreciate you guys having me.
Yeah.
Is there any closing thoughts you have before you dip out?
Any closing thoughts? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I just if I think I said it on Twitter, like, if you want to understand America, you got to understand the 1970s. If you want to understand America in the 1970s, and by extension, understand all of America, you just got to watch Nashville. Nashville, it's the fucking best. I love it so much.
Nice.
All right, guys.
Thanks so much for coming on, brother.
Right,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So I have a clip. This is Lily Tomlin introducing.
Oh, now that he's gone, you can play clips.
Well, I didn't want to like.
We have an hour with it. What do you like? Oh yeah. Welcome to the show. Let's play like 10 minutes.
A lot of most of the clips that I had are like 5 minutes. Like 5 minutes out of an hour is a significant chunk of time.
That's up.
Well, hi. I made a couple of notes because I started thinking about what am I going to say when I introed Nashville. I said there's so much stuff that went on, but this was my first movie role, and how could I be luckier than to get into an Altman movie on the first time I was, in a film, and it was because we had the same agent, and I can remember Altman got on the phone with me, and then he said, oh no, that was for Late Show. I forgot. Wait. For Nashville, I didn't talk to him before I went in the movie. Sam put me in the movie, and then I went down to Nashville and all that. And I thought, all those people coming in, I thought, well, I could play half of these roles. And so then the more I saw them, I saw how brilliant Altman was at casting. And I said, well, I must be more like Linnea than I ever realized. And so then when we had the cafe scene, and I knew when I was preparing that it was an important scene for Linnea. When I'm sitting in the back of the cafe and Keith Carradine is singing "I'm Easy," and all the other girls are there who've been to bed with him. And I'm a married woman. I have 2 children, 2 deaf children, as a matter of fact. And so the scene played out, the daily played out, and I just was horrified. I thought, oh, I failed the scene so badly. And I sneaked out before the lights came up, and I went back to my motel room. And then Scotty, who was Altman's great assistant, whom everybody knew at the time, who really worked for him for years. And Scotty had kind of a lisp, and she always had a cigarette. And she said, we're very worried why you left the theater before the lights came up. And I said, oh, Scotty, it was just horrible. I just failed the scene. I don't know what to do. I was beside myself, and I wanted to get out of the movie. But of course, we'd filmed so much of it already. And Scotty said, well, we didn't think it was so bad. And, and all like that. So then I did the same thing in 9 to 5. I saw the first dailies and I wanted to get out. I went to Bruce Gilbert and I said, you can let me out. You don't have to pay me or anything. I'm going to ruin the film. And then the next day I saw the next day's dailies and I was really good. So I said, I think I'll stick around. So the thing I wanted to tell you about was when Altman's style of directing was just so freewheeling. And when we cast the 2 kids who were non-hearing, they were really kids who were deaf and could not hear. And the first 2 kids that came, he hired them. That's great. Those are the kids. Those are our kids. And I saw him do that time and time again. And when actors would say, well, what do you want in this scene? And Altman would say, I don't know. Why don't you surprise me? And I think that's what endeared him to so many actors. And we just loved him beyond description. He was but he was a scoundrel at the same time, and a big bear of a man, and had great appetites. And he would be smoking weed on every night when we'd watch dailies and drinking. And when I first was there, I said, how is he going to be okay tomorrow? And I come in and it's like 6 o'clock, he's riding the crane already. He was just magnificent. And he was so forgiving and so okay with everything. And whenever anybody came to visit us on the set, Elliot Gould came, Julie Christie, and Karen Black, and he would put them in the movie. He would just put them in the movie. And Karen Black came, and he made her into a country singer. And we were just all up in arms about it because she was only going to be there 4 days, and we were all there for 2 months. And we went en masse and complained to him. Why is Karen Black only here for 4 days, and we have to all be here for 2 months? And he said, you're not supposed to like her. And it was just that simple. Anyway, I hope you enjoy this film. I certainly enjoyed making it, and I got nominated for Best Supporting as a result. I did not win. I didn't win, but it was such an auspicious debut in films, and carried me for quite a while. Anyway, thank you for being here tonight, and I hope you just love it.
That rocks. She's great.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes.
Also, Altman seems like he'd be the coolest dude ever to fucking hang out with.
Yeah.
By the way, another thing I note that why I wanted to figure out what his exact age was when MASH hit and became like a huge hit. Altman was the same age as I was.
Wow.
So I look better than he does, but
everybody looks better than people did back then.
Yeah, everyone back then is like, oh Jesus, you're 30?
Be 30 this year, and everyone's like, you're like in high school, right? And I'm like,
yeah.
No, but thanks.
I always love.
I don't.
I could play a high schooler in the WB. Thank you.
Yeah. You know what's so funny? It's like a lot of people think like they're starting to actually cast people like in their late teens now to play actual teenagers. like in The Last of Us, and like obviously like
instead of like in
Wednesday.
Spider-Man where everyone's in their 30s, it's like,
And
whoa,
people
how many
are
years
like,
got held
"What?"
back?
People are like, how are these kids looking so young? I'm like, that's because a lot of people look really young now. Like it's something's in the water, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah,
But-
see,
and
my
I-
problem is I only drink bottled water because we don't have tap water, and it's
We
the
don't got
tap
the
water
fluoride.
is the tap water that keeps you young.
We should really get a sponsorship from that company for as much airtime as they get. I think that well, but I love hearing about like late period successes, like folks that like Bukowski, like writing his first book like at like I think it was like 40 or something like that, and like Altman's like having his first like big hit movie at 45. I love hearing about that kind of thing
Look
because
at
he's
all
such
the
a.
Oscar winners recently.
I was gonna say very apropos of recent memory.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Comeback
absolutely.
stories. People are finally, getting their due.
And I mean, even Martin McDonagh, like doing Banshees of Inisherin, like he had an entire playwriting career before he had a movie career. Like
Right, even before like In Bruges and like all that. Like
this
that
is like
was-
his second act.
Yeah. And then he's sitting around trading filmmaking tips with Taylor Swift. So there you go. Good for him.
He has Colin Farrell, he has Christopher Walken, and he has Brendan Gleeson. I mean, in like two of his movies, but like Colin Farrell, I think like Christopher Walken was in his plays. Like he cast Christopher Walken in one of his bigger plays.
That's
So I
awesome.
feel like he's one of those guys that like just grabs people back from the from
Well,
his
and that's
fabulous
another thing. And Altman does that a lot too. When like you find someone, and a lot of seasoned directors will like find someone that they love working with, and they'll continue to keep working.
Well,
with them.
both Keith Carradine and Shelley Duvall were in Thieves Like Us 1 year before this movie came out.
Yeah, and and why not? Why wouldn't you? Right? Why wouldn't you?
I mean, why would you have Shelley Duvall in anything?
Yeah. I mean, it's weird to me that I feel like Popeye hurt Shelley Duvall more than it hurt Robert Altman,
which is wild.
It's just wild because Popeye is one of the biggest swing and a miss I think in modern filmmaking that isn't called.
I mean, I saw it in the theater when I was like 3 or 4, and I loved it at the time. And like that's the problem.
Kid,
That's the problem with the movie right there. Is like, if you're 3 or 4, that movie's great. And anybody else, nah.
I think I saw it at 6 or 7. I remember watching this and being like, "Wow, Popeye! Robin Williams really brought him to life."
Yeah, I feel like Robert Williams didn't like get any on him. I feel like Robert Altman barely got it. Although he did make weird, like he did Secret Honor, which is that movie with Philip Hall, where he plays Nixon, and it's literally just him. It's like a movie like about Nixon like talking to himself in a room, and it's great. It's so good. Philip Baker Hall is that the guy? He's in. Speaking of Magnolia, he's in Magnolia. He's in a bunch of stuff. But like he made a couple like kind of just weird sort of like maybe I'm gonna find myself again kind of films after that because that was 84. Philip Baker Hall. I just want to make sure I got that right. If you want to see Philip Baker Hall as Nixon, it's pretty great. I actually like it better than the movie Nixon, frankly. Even though it's a very different portrayal. And the fact that it's in the mid 80s and it's Altman is like makes it really interesting as well. But like I would say until The Player, like, there's a few like Beyond Therapy, OC and Stigs. It's like, okay, it's fine. But then like he has Player, he has Shortcuts, he has Pret-a-Porter. How do you say that? I took German.
Pret-a-Porter.
Yeah, like he kind of like has like that 90s comeback. That's again, Shortcuts is just astounding. I know I said it's like I'm getting paid like that's our sponsor is Shortcuts, but like I actually feel like it's one of the rare movies that you can argue it's different, but takes the Nashville formula and like kind of takes it somewhere a little different. It also kind of like does the things that are best about it. But again, that's a hard thing to do.
No.
Huh?
I said to Memphis.
To Memphis, yeah.
Takes it somewhere a little bit different, and it's like Memphis, Tennessee.
But I think that it's so wild. This is such a crazy movie in general, but also to be around of its time and perfectly emblematic of its time. That's impressive, man. There's some and again, remember the second he made MASH, which is his biggest hit, he wanted to get away from it as fast as possible too. Like he wanted to get away from it. No, I don't blame him at all. And then like wanted nothing to do with the show and just wasn't into it all. And first thing he does,
show ran longer than what it? Doesn't MASH take place on the Korean War?
It takes longer than the Korean War.
Yeah,
right.
Longer than Vietnam and Korea put together, even with the times of peace put in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, like
well, I mean, technically the Korean War is still going, but yeah.
Anyway, I think that that's fascinating. I think it's interesting that like again to have like a couple like just massive swings and misses that even after like a late period success and still kind of be like, no, that's fucking Altman, man. Like that's the guy that made like Nashville. And then later on it's like, oh, that's the guy that made The Player. That's the guy that made Shortcuts. That's the guy that made blah blah blah. But,
I pulled this for Andy. I wanted to get his thoughts on it.
I wish it wasn't Prairie Home Companion. That was his last movie, but anyway, whatever. Sorry.
This is this is from Trailers from Hell, I guess. You know that.
The Joe Dante and John Carlson show.
Yeah, so they got Dan Perry, who's the guy that designed the title sequence in the beginning, to talk about it. And since it's art related, I thought it'd be cool to get Andy's thoughts on it. I'm kind of scared for what Andy getting off topic here, but let's
You're setting the topic for it to be him, so we can't be off topic. So I say that now.
And I'm here with Trailers from Hell, talking about Nashville. I designed the titles for the film, and part of the titles was this special commercial that later became the teaser trailer for the film. But it starts with the Paramount logo, and it's all scratched up and looks dirty and so on. I was working closely with Bob Altman at the time, so while he was cutting Nashville, he came to me and said, Paramount is driving me crazy. They keep wanting me to cut footage, and I don't want to do that. And so I want to get back at them somehow. What do you think I can do? So I said, well, you've been using this black and white dupe of the Paramount logo, and it's gotten all scratched up and running through the camera back and forth and so on. Why don't we put it on the film like that? And he thought it was a great idea. Then when I finally started to do the titles, I've been trained at the Art Center College of Design to do very high quality, high level, elegant design. So I brought him all of these beautiful designs that said Nashville. I felt very right for the film. And he looked at it, all of them, and he said, no, these are all wrong. He says, Nashville is a junky, trashy place. He says, cheap people there have gone to try to make mark in music and all. So this had to be kind of junky and low grade. And at the time in 1975 in LA, there were these TV ads selling record albums and selling all kinds of things that they were yelling and screaming at the camera. There was Cal Worthington selling cars, and there was Mad Munch selling TVs. And I found a guy who did those commercials for K-Tel Records, and I hired him to do my voiceover. And I wrote this script myself, and he yelled and screamed it. We shot it, and I cut it together, and Bob loved it. And Paramount loved it so much that they used it as a teaser trailer.
Before your very eyes without commercial interruption.
That rocks.
So following the Paramount logo is 3 titles that are just white on black, and there's this little sort of after image of the title over the left lower corner. And that happened because Bob Altman took the film to Paris while he was cutting, and he showed it to his friend Francois Truffaut in a small screening room in Paris. And he said it was so small, we were sitting right against the wall, and the projection was right to our side. And for some reason, there was a refraction with the projected image, and it was projecting this after image to the side that he liked the idea of. So he described it to me. He said, I want to do that with the titles. So I tested it and found, finally did what he thought was how he remembered it. And that went out on the film as well. This peculiar little touch that was because Bob Altman wanted it.
Just hanging out with Truffaut and BD.
Yeah. No, I love like those little happy, like it's always like the little details that you want to get right that people might not necessarily notice, but like it brings out something to that finished product. That gorgeous painting that they zoomed in on with each of the characters at the beginning, with that fake commercial is fantastic. And what's actually really fascinating is Nashville Now's thought of like with the residue of Hatch show print, which at the time in the 1970s was just doing wrestling posters, but they did all like the posters for like Elvis and Hank Williams Sr. and Patsy Cline and like all those, all that great, the high point of country music in the 50s. And even before that, because before that, like if you ever go to like a diner and you see a Negro League Baseball poster, you look right at the bottom. It says printed at by the Hatch Show Print in Nashville, Tennessee. And they did like vaudeville, and they've been around since the late 1800s, and they are such an integral part of Nashville now. Like when you think of Nashville's graphic design, you think immediately of their woodblock posters, the distorted text from the from when they're stacking up these wet posters together, pulling them apart and distorting the lettering on them. They're absolutely legend for that. And nowadays you don't that's what you think of. So it's great too, to see like this pre Hatch revival. Jim Sheridan, the mandolin player I mentioned earlier, he's actually the guy behind the Hatch revival. There's a lot of rich history just right in that whole thing, and so you're seeing kind of like what people were trying to come up with to fit Nashville, even though now it's like this big cookie cutter, which I kind of hate. The fact
it's been copied. It's been copied so much. Yeah. It's like a style, but like now listing everything else.
I have a Prince. Like I could just walk over here and pull up my Patsy Cline poster that I have from them.
I love Patsy Cline.
It's
and even if people don't know what Andy's talking about, like say if you're listening to it or whatever, like you'll recognize it the second you see it. Like where you're like, oh yeah, that kind of poster, because they're just like ubiquitous in culture. Yeah, and now it's they've been bought out by the Country Western Hall of Fame. They've been doing posters for the Country Western Hall of Fame since forever. It seems like at least all my life. It is a cornerstone of Nashville now. But for a while it was like this place like outside of downtown Nashville. There you go.
Nobody went to. Yeah. There we go. And they did.
Awesome.
Yeah, no, they got so many great posters, so many great designs. I absolutely love it.
I've thought about having a tour poster made in that style, but considering I already kind of dress like Glenn Campbell or something, I feel like it might be a little bit too much.
You should get I like the Viva Nash Vegas one with the
Vintage Rooster. That's awesome.
Yeah, you should get you should try to get a
Elvis
poster.
The fun story about the Elvis poster is
Action Chief, just the solos poster, something like that, and it's like,
that'll really move. Everyone's looking at
those. Viva solos, and
Viva la solo.
The Elvis poster, whenever that ended up on, was part of the trials of Elvis's indecency in Congress, and it was televised. And the congressman who was railing against Elvis was waving around that same Elvis poster that you saw there. And you could see the printmaker's thumbprint in the middle of like one of the things. And he was so embarrassed that it was like, oh my God, that's my thumbprint. My thumbprint was just seen all around the world.
It was.
It's not even my good thumb.
We all know it's all lefty over here.
The dumb thumb. The dumb thumb. Wow, I said that. Okay.
Thumb.
But you want to do some of those, good old Letterboxd one-liners?
Of course, I'd love to. So, of course, Letterboxd is a social media site for film lovers to talk with and to each other about the films they love, maybe the films that they didn't love, the films that have posters with weird thumb smudges in the middle that are on national television. And of course, everybody gets to have their say, not just the Siskel's and Eberts of the world, to bottom-up democracy. But it's best expressed succinctly. Everybody get it out quickly. Work airtight 5 in front of the brick wall at the Comedy Store. Open mic night. However you want to do it. You get in, you get out. These, in fact, are the Letterboxd one-liners for Nashville. Let's go. I think movies should meander the fuck around again.
Yeah.
By the way, I think this is the perfect background for them, like the graphic background is just
So
This is Nashville.
And I love it.
I'm the
Like,
wanderer.
I love his little snide comment when he's like, how tall do you think that guy is?
Yeah,
He's
I
like,
know, it's so good. Yeah.
He's like, don't ever ask him that.
Yeah, super pissed. I mean, look at how he treats the freaking the everybody in that when he's recording that horrendous song at the beginning. I mean, it's like this guy is a nightmare.
Well,
clearly.
and the fact that he has like political ambitions, you could think that he's a little Napoleon boy.
Maybe it's too bad Tim Robinson play his son. They could be Bob Roberts. Country Bear Jamboree, Behind the Music.
Yeah.
Good old days. Behind the music.
Man,
I miss that show.
I would watch that.
I think it's streaming on like VH1 or something, or at least it was for a while.
Yeah.
Should have made a spin-off of Tricycle Man.
Yes, please.
Tricycle.
I
Oh, wait,
want to
wrong
ride
song.
my tricycle. Yeah.
He's like the wheels find a way.
It's crazy that he doesn't speak the entire time. Like, it has to be like a decision, right? I mean,
I'm Jeff Goldblum. You've been hemming and hawing way too much on the set. You're not saying a word.
Going forward, whenever I become bored by a conversation, I'm just gonna cut the person off and say, Elliot Gould is here, and then leave.
That's just sad. There's so many sad moments in this, but like it's an all-time sad moment. He's like just getting ready to like sing. It's probably the first time he's sung in front of somebody, like the song that he wrote, and then she's like, Elliot Gould is here.
Yeah, I didn't do that accent, but yeah. Goo Goo Cluster. I love that that's in there because that was when there's that combination of like music plus corporate placement and stuff. And like I'm thinking of like such and such brought to you by the Goo Goo Cluster. Sure.
And in some ways it was better back then because at least they put their sponsors up front. Like
right.
Now on TV, like you have you have the Climate Change Hour brought to you by ExxonMobil, and they decide to keep the logo down here.
I remember there was an episode of Heroes, that show Heroes, that like there was just that one car that kept featuring very prominently. I was like, what is with this car? Why do they keep showing it? I was like, oh, okay, I understand.
Well, same thing with Walking Dead. Walking Dead would have.
I was just gonna say that.
Yeah,
they had that hybrid.
Not to be confused with the Goo Goo Muck.
Right.
Or the Goo Goo Dolls.
Oh God.
By the way, they have like the racial dynamics in this movie are obviously really interesting. They have the Tommy Brown or whatever, like the whitest whatever in Nashville.
What a great scene, yeah.
But they have him doing the commercials for the Goo Goo Clusters, and this is Tommy Brown and the Goo Goo Clusters or something. Like he's the
the shameless hack that's doing it and is getting called out in that one scene in the bar, which is great. And he doesn't even perform it. He's just around and he's getting heckled. It's great.
Girl, you can't sing.
This movie is so American that at some point I was waiting to hear the entire Constitution read out in song.
I can see them cutting that out, like this Haven Hamilton's because that's his bicentennial
song.
It's his bicentennial album or whatever, and he's like reading the Constitution.
I'm gonna read the Constitution in song.
And then Philip Walker breaks
like
in.
a Bernie Sanders album.
Oh God!
Yeah. I love that one of Hal Philip Walker's thing is change the words to the national anthem because he's like nobody wants to hear that song. No one gets it.
No one wants to sing the national anthem anymore.
Yeah. To be fair, the national anthem does suck and it should be America the Beautiful and should be by Ray Charles. Thank you.
Agreed.
Justice for Ray.
I would like exactly. I would like every movie better if Elliot Gould just wandered in as himself.
Yes,
it is
Elliot Gould.
Elliot Gould
would have certainly made China Salesman more entertaining.
That outfit he was wearing was that outfit he was wearing was something else. I'll tell you that much. Peak 70s. All right. Opal from BBC, the most annoying person ever. Oh my God, I hate her stupid music note hat. It's such a specific thing, but yeah.
One of the worst scenes in this whole movie where they're stuck in the traffic jam. And she's she's just like talking to Leanne or whatever, Lily Tomlin's character.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, my two kids are deaf. And she's like, oh my God, that's horrible. And she's like, no. And she's like, oh, I couldn't possibly meet them. No.
Yeah, fascinating.
Gossip with the help.
Yeah, that guy's trying so hard to be their friend, and she's just like, I make a point never to gossip with servants.
Yeah, amazing. Somehow every song is simultaneously running through my head, but I love chaos, so thank you, Altman.
Nice.
The one that got stuck in my head is the final one that Barbara Jean sings, where she's like, na, 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 and then that part of it where she's singing about her mommy and daddy.
Yeah.
Then the end of it, she's like, my mommy and daddy. He gives like the dumbest face you've ever seen in your life.
The one time I went to Nashville, I spent a lot of time riding around on Lime scooters. No one in this film rides a Lime scooter, but I love it all the same.
See, I texted you about this because when I went down to Austin during the pandemic, like that was like, well, I think probably like the second or third trip I ever took by myself. And then I met out with like my ex-girlfriend in Austin, ran around, spent the whole week riding fucking Lime scooters around, and then stopped in Nashville. But by the time we got to Nashville on the way back to New York, it was like 2 a.m. and there was nothing really open. So like I feel that in my soul. Like you ride around on the Lime scooters. That's what you do when you're down in the South.
I played Nashville last year. I didn't see a single one, but hey, maybe it wasn't around the rock clubs. Who knows? Anyway, those are the letterbox. Either way, Lime scooters, ubiquitous or nowhere to be found. Those are letterbox one-liners for Nashville. Please follow the show. Grand Ole Flockery over here. That's pretty good. It's pretty good. The Menage a Folk Trio at Movie Night Extravaganza on Letterboxd. I am Philip Walker, replacement party candidate at Conan Neutron. Watching the highbrow, the midbrow, the populist stuff, follow the Criterion Challenge along with me. I kind of caught up actually.
By the way, I think the best feature StreamYard's come up with is to put these little things in the bottom of the names that you can actually like put like a title for yourself now. Like the new level of fuckery that you can get away with.
I feel like they rolled that out just for us with our constantly changing titles. Honestly, and if we have made one change in this world, if it's that, I'm okay with it.
It's us, and then it's like those people are like streaming out of their office or something where they're like, I want to put vice president of the company on my title card.
Oh yeah, they're coming at it very earnestly.
The weird thing is we don't have that on Ben's show, so like it's only here.
There you go. So we must be doing something right to last 151 episodes. J. Andrew bumming down Broadway. Bumming down Broadway world is watch all the weird stuff so you don't have to, or maybe so you can. Who am I to judge? I know you got Amityville in space in your watch list. I know you got because I mentioned yesterday. So
Amityville 2 is pretty good though.
Yes, but
Amityville in the Hood though. Like, just skip that one. That was terrible.
So anyway, follow him if you want to see all that stuff. Christina Yippee-ki-yay. Maybe she'll come back. Maybe she'll come back and unlock some more stuff for us.
When do I have time? I barely have time to watch the films we do.
How do you have time? How do I have time? But anyway, whatever. That's
we're like two of the busiest folks on this, and also
it's like the Heisenberg effect. If you actually think about it too hard, you won't be able to do it anymore. Bumming down Broadway, J. Andrew World. Please take it away with the plugs, if you will.
All right, you're watching us right now on YouTube, so please do those YouTube things, like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell if you haven't already, and please, the big ask is watch the video to the end, because that way that helps other movie fans find our content, and that helps you hear a great Conan Neutron song. We're also over
remixed
on,
for 23. It's better than the other one.
Yes, indeed. We're also over on Twitch, so do the Twitch things. Throw us a sub, and if you have an Amazon account, you can subscribe for free, and that doesn't cost you a penny, and that helps us out a great deal. So thank you very much for doing all that. We're on various social media sites. If you like us, we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, and we're on Instagram. So if you're on any of those, find us there, follow us, comment. We'll respond. You know, we're not above that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's the pitch, huh? Yeah. Comment,
Yes,
will
there we
respond.
go.
All right.
Yeah, you never know what we're gonna say.
Well, ain't that the truth? Boy, howdy. All right. Yeah, sure.
But we also have a Patreon, and the big thing with the Patreon is that it really does help us make this show. So please subscribe. One of the things you have access to is getting access to an after party, which we are not doing today. However, we've done it in the past, and if you haven't caught up with all of our after parties, go dig the crates, man. You're gonna find some weird shit, and it's gonna be wonderful, and you'll love it.
I think you're gonna find some weird shit as the pitch for that is the perfect pitch, because you indeed will find some weird shit. It's like when you go looking for mushrooms, you know, you're gonna find some weird shit.
The after party, he got some weird shit, man.
Oh God.
Yeah, get some of that weird shit.
Got some of that after party.
Hey man, you got any of that? You got any of that Fred Flintstone French connection, man?
I cannot believe we forgot to do the Bad Lieutenant scale as a bit during RoboCop. We mentioned it, but we didn't do it as a bit.
Oh my God,
That's
yes. So speaking of things that are on you,
we'll do it when we do
you had
Cop Rock or something. Remember that? Cop Rock?
episode.
Wow. Cocaine
you had
decisions
a big
at peak form.
episode of Protonic Reversal with Goats.
John Daniel from Mountain Goats, also star of the Chloe Savini episode of Poker Face for people that are interested in that show, which you should be, because it's Natasha Lyonne basically being Columbo, and it's awesome. That was a great episode. That's up in the archives. That's out into the general feed now. So anywhere you get your podcast, you can go listen to me nerd out with the guy from Mountain Goats, which I'm a big fan of that band. So a lot of people seem to like it.
Great stuff. You should be a big fan of them.
Mm-hmm. I am,
but yeah. Everybody should be.
Everyone else should be. Yeah, they do okay. They're pretty busy.
Yeah, but they're not going to.
That episode of Poker Face is amazing, by the way. It might be my favorite episode of the show, but of course it's the music.
Yes, and Poker Face will not be a Caterwall.
not that I'm aware of. No, although there's so many goddamn bands. Maybe, who knows?
Yeah, who knows? You can see live in person Conan Neutron and Secret Friends and Action Chief.
That's right. People are talking about it more and more on this show only. 4 days, Minneapolis. Kind of a steal, frankly, if you look at like the amount of entertainment you're getting. If you're into noisy music, especially,
that's a lot.
Sure is. Yeah,
that's a lot of Molly.
Should we? We have some surprises, yeah, but there's some really good stuff there, and it's
what's the Molly per act you're supposed to do? I'm like a little bit behind on my my Molly math.
I'll get my Molly math. I think Molly math is actually playing the after party on Sunday. Molly math. Oh, they do great work. They're second records, classic. Thank you.
And of course,
anyway, tickets available.
Yeah, tickets are available. And if you want a preview of this, you can go to neutronfriends.bandcamp.com and get some Conan Neutron music that you can take home for yourself, download, whatever, however you want to do it, all before the show.
Do whatever you want to get paid either way.
I feel like the Grand Ole Opry would be the worst place to take Molly.
It would probably depend on who's performing. Or do you mean while performing?
No, I mean like if you're like in the seats, like listening to that that old country western shit, and you're rolling fucking balls off Molly.
Must be doing something right to last 200 years. Oh my god!
Hey, good looking.
You're like feeling the chair, and you're like, oh, Haven Hamilton.
What you got cooking?
You just see like a Hendrix fan on acid doing like playing banjo. and just like up on stage, starting to sweat. The banjo's getting weirder and
Start
weirder.
looking like Frog. If I want pig, I need you to get me pig.
That's right. Yeah, he wants the piano player to cut his hair. Who's like the music supervisor on the show, on the movie?
Yeah,
if I remember correctly, or like somebody did the production. I think that the idea of performing while under the influence of like any sort of drug or whatever, that's extremely not my shit. I do know bands that's like all their thing. That's all they seem to do. It seems to work out fine for them. It seems terrifying to me, but
yeah.
Guess I'm just built different.
Well, I mean, it's DJs mostly that I feel like play on Molly, and it's like
I know, like I could tell you some cow stories, some butthole surfer story. I mean, they were just like, it was like a rolling party with some of these bands where it's like, okay.
But I'm saying Molly specifically because you have your fucking stupid turntables out and you're feeling them, and I feel like that's why they get so into what they're doing. They're like, yeah, on my hands, like,
yeah, I guess so. There won't be any of that at Caterwall. If you don't want to see that, go to Caterwall because there won't be any.
Yes, so it'll be actually like real bands doing real music.
I can't speak to Molly. Maybe there'll be some. Maybe there won't. There's certainly. I can tell you why. I shouldn't.
Catermall.
There was some floating around last year. I'm like, where'd that come from?
It's Catermall. It's where there's the most.
The orange tops.
Exactly. Come down to the Catermall.
So Christina has a Twitch
still my plug?
show.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah.
What?
Yes. So yeah, buy Conan's Molly.
Yeah.
It's pure.
It's wrapped in vinyl.
It's so weirdly it comes as an extra along with a download code. So it's a download code, and you get some Molly and you get some vinyl. So what more do you need out of life?
Yes. But Christina has a great Twitch show, which y'all should be watching.
Is that Molly too, or is that a different drug?
Anything coming up this week?
Just streaming. Trump didn't get arrested, which we all kind of expected.
Oh, shocking.
Apparently he died, but who knows? R.I.P. King. Everyone's making photos of him running. I'm like, Trump can't run. What the fuck, guys? Come on now.
I love the
AI
art,
photos. What he can't run?
People keep making AI art of like Trump running away from cops.
I know. I'm like, he can't run.
Oh, really?
Like,
that sounds great.
making me laugh my ass off though. Oh,
One of them is eating a slice of pizza while they're trying to get him. He's like,
someone literally tweeted, "Leave out a well done steak and ketchup for Trump."
But he would be like eating pizza with a knife and fork, like a savage.
Such an elitist. But yeah, we're just gonna be talking about news. And
so that's coming up. All right, yeah. What else?
Drama, and, well, not drama, but like pop culture and shit. You guys know what I talk about. We shoot the shit. We chill, we chat, we react.
But the point is that the audience that maybe doesn't know the stream maybe doesn't know that. So that's why people should check out your stream.
Yeah, check it out. Work. Oh, no, that's that wrong thing.
Yes, and you have a coffee.com / Cosmopolitics.
Yes.
So buy Christina a coffee. And if you don't want to send her money, you just want to buy her stuff, you can go to I'm sorry, I don't remember the
cheapmolly.net.
I think it's throne.me/cosmopolitics. So if you want to buy me something off my Amazon wish list, I got a lot of cheap stuff. I want to kind of redecorate back here. Which, by the way,
you want to buy her drugs off the dark web.
Brett Cooper,
you know where
I got my eyes on you, girl. You steal my aesthetic, okay?
Oh wow.
Your bedroom is not even real. Sorry.
Been called out. All right. It's like I'm in like a pro wrestling promo suddenly.
I'm just saying, she and I got beef.
Put you in the ring.
I could probably beat her ass. Anyway. Oh god,
there we go.
My knuckles aren't cracking.
And that's what her show's like.
Yeah. Also, a lot of people call me mom now, which I don't mind at all.
Mom? Well,
yes.
Yeah. Okay, all right.
By the way, guys.
And I was just going to add, since Nando's not here, check out Woke Bros with him and Waz.
And he also has a new show.
What's it called again? I forget.
Hold on.
It sounded interesting too, and I wasn't near my podcast.
Is it like about Trump, right? MAGA something?
No, his new show. I think it's Shoot the Messenger, Espionage, Murder, and Pegasus Spyware. It's about journalists that are it's about Jamal Khashoggi, mostly, but it's about journalists that are killed and tracked down by different regimes.
Yeah, it sounds interesting.
Yeah.
By the way, guys, I just want to tell you, you can't put handcuffs on a guy like this.
True.
Yeah.
I'm gonna. We didn't mention it. I'm gonna be recording tomorrow to like next Wednesday, so I won't be on the next show. But yeah, like it's. I'm very excited for that. It's been a long time, so we recorded the next record. So
I'm happy that you're being able to.
We wanted to rush into the Molly bit, is what we wanted to do apparently. But what's that, Andy?
No, we're gonna miss that. I'm happy that you're actually being able to do your art and getting into the studio, which is a whole thing that like a level of creativity you might not always get a chance to play around with at that level. Like it's not an everyday thing.
Yeah, I mean, the Dangerous Nomenclature was recorded April of 2021, and that's the last time I recorded. So it's just been stacking up for a while. So it's past.
But like we are truly gonna miss you next week. So you'll be in our hearts.
We definitely are. We're replaced you with Andy's professor from an Asian studies
art history
class.
professor.
Okay.
That's what we've brainstormed so far. But I feel like you'll be next to the Lily Tomlin's Black Gospel Choir in Nashville that you'll be in the next room recording, and which brings me to final thoughts.
Yeah. Oh my God, that wasn't even final thoughts. You're right. Like I feel like we've been doing this for so long. Jesus. Wait, I'm first now? Okay.
I never really like go by an order. I don't know.
Really? I think it's always the same. But anyway. Well, okay, so this is pretty much the OG of the Tapestry film, I think they call it, right? Altman would later revisit a great success with the excellent shortcuts. Paul Thomas Anderson later given credit for it. Fake news for Magnolia, but Magnolia is good. Over 20 years later, though. You get 5 days in Nashville where you get 20 plus main characters that are interacting with each other in overlapping narratives, stories, interactions. Total vibes, but a lived-in world. So it's ambitious, it's ingenious, it's a technical marvel. It's one of the reasons why Altman is so underrated as a director, frankly. He's a very impressive director, and I think because he has so many movies, and people only remember like 4 or 5 of them, but they do a lot of movies. But it's packed with enough storyline engagements for a few seasons of a prestige TV show, although apparently there is a prestige TV show called Nashville. Although, how prestigious is it really, if I haven't heard of it? But anyway.
It's that girl that was in all those shows at the time.
Yeah.
She's horrible. She's a horrible actress. She's dreadfully bad.
Yeah, not good.
I mean, it's a good thing she's beautiful because, like, anywely. Sorry. Sidebar. Coming up next week. She's terrible.
Screen.
Not good. But anyway,
she's like, where's your co-host that said, we're like, he's recording? I don't know. We just invited you on to rebuttal, but like
that would definitely be a popular episode if she was on. Altman, he managed to make a film that makes a lot of sense, not just for that specific city, that specific time, but America in time. Right for the bicentennial. I think that's really impressive. And considering
it lasted 200 years.
Considering how great Altman is at portraying characters that are not just good, not just bad, but human. He's very much in his element here, and that's one of the things that makes it a very exciting and cool film. And it's great to have Nando on to talk about it. It was great to cover it. Hope we should do some more Altman stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Christina, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I actually really enjoyed this film. I think, it has a stellar cast. All the storylines are like woven together so, beautifully. This is probably my favorite Robert Altman film. Obviously not a big country music fan, but then again, I'm a huge musical buff, and plus also with my love of Patsy Cline and Loretta Lynn, it's like, gave it a shot, and I've watched this film 3 times, I think. So yeah, I give it 10 out of 10 cowboy hats.
All right.
Yeehaw.
10 out of 10 yees and 10 out of 10 ha's.
Yeah.
Eddie.
I gotta say this was a lot of fun. I have not seen this movie since I was a small child. This was like one of those ubiquitous things that was on television a lot, especially in Atlanta. Being that close to Nashville. I mean, not that Atlanta's that close to Nashville, but
they're like
it's close enough.
Look at those.
God damn.
Wow.
No, but they're like look at those Tennesseans over there over the border. Like what Hicks people in fucking
No, I mean, we got Hee Haw on TV. I mean, granted, Dukes of Hazzard was filmed in Georgia, so like that was a big point of pride at the time. And we also, WSM, which interestingly enough, when they first started off playing the radio and broadcasting what was known as hillbilly music back in the 1910s and the 1920s.
Oh my God, he's turning into Barbara Jean.
Play a song. That's what they called it. But no, they actually broadcast around the world, so people around the world actually got to hear that stuff, which is just I always found that history fascinating, and there is like so much history that's behind everything in this movie that not just the characters but like the places in the film too. So there's a great rich history that adds to the tapestry that makes it even richer than you necessarily realize. So there you go.
All right. Well, Conan, we wish you the best of luck on your recording. I don't know if you'll ever come up with a banger that sounds better than this.